Well, the next show we're going to be talking about is Knight and Magic.
Now, this one is everything that I wish that In Another World with my smartphone had been, because it's pretty much focused entirely on the fantasy aspect of it, and it's just awesome in that regards. And this is a mech anime.
Yep.
May not seem like it to some, just not knowing it or whatnot, but this is a mech anime, and it is. I am not necessarily one for mechs, and this is still one that I found to be really fun to watch. The main character, obviously the boy there, terrible with names. I'm never gonna remember names, but anyways, he's very passionate. To say the least, about mechs in any sense of the word. Like, he is very passionate. So I don't know. Did we talk about this one at the beginning of the season or no?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, a guy ended up getting killed, got reborn, and basically reborn as this kid essentially in another world where mechs and such exist. But he retains all his memories from his previous life, so he still has his love of mechs, and the ideas that he had in his head about mechs are still there. So he is basically taking their design and their ideas and re-engineering them and making them just so much better, and in things that people are looking at him, because he's still just a kid. He's like in his teens essentially, and yet he has become this master builder of mechs, and he literally did it completely on his own. He's like commandeered builders and these dwarves that you usually build them. He's like, I want you to build like this. We don't normally do that. I want you to build it like this. Trust me, it's gonna be cool. And eventually they had their skepticism, but after like the first couple of times and they see what he's doing, now at this point they're just like, okay, what do you want now? What do you want to build now? Because I mean, originally the mechs that they had were literally just like knight characters, so they were just, you could think of them as like overly grown knights essentially. They were like at least 6 or so stories tall, but literally that's all they were. They were suits of armor that could wield giant weapons and such. But he ended up, like, the first thing he ended up doing was he ended up giving them extra arms attached to their back that will come out and have these 2 staves that will then fire essentially. So he gave them essentially an idea for a gun, more or less. Mm-hmm. They could all use magic staves and whatnot, but they didn't. They had to like drop their weapon in order to use that. So now they actually had the ability to do that while still holding a weapon or a shield at the same time. And then he also gave them, instead of a humanoid looking one, he made it look like essentially a horse, but that increased its speed and its maneuverability. So he gave it like a foreleg, and then he actually had originally he had 2 people build it, but then he actually figured out a way to actually have where one person could do it, and he almost made it look like a motorcycle in a sense, like the steering controls for it.
Okay,
because
cool.
You could like shift while you're steering, and it actually would then the whole body itself would move along with that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the one he ends up building for himself, he actually gave it the ability to fly. So I mean, it's like all these things, like he keeps innovating, keeps adding new things, keeps adding more, doing more things. And originally, the whole thing is they were fighting these monsters that would appear every now and then. And that's what these knights were originally designed and made for. But of course, original designs and made intentions don't always stay that way. And other kingdoms, they would use them for war. And eventually, like his design, the original design he had, where the extra arms and everything, someone ended up stealing that idea. They ended up stealing one of the prototype robots that he ended up creating for that. And then they used it for their design, and then they declared war on outlying kingdoms. So then it became, instead of fighting monsters, now we're fighting other people in other mechs. So, but of course, he was all on board with that, because he's like, well, the only way a mech should be fought is with another mech. And he was like, yes, this is great, absolutely. And then he just to say how much his brain is focused on that, is like he ended up helping out another kingdom. And they're like, well, what do you want in return? He's like, well, all the mechs that we destroy, I want all the parts for. It's like, really? They're like, he's like, yeah, I want to see what, because these were like a different design than his, and he's like, I want to see what makes him tick, and I want to try to incorporate. And he started going off, and they're just like, okay, fine, you can have it, you can have them.
Yeah.
So it was just, it's one of those animes. It's got a lot of good fantasy clicks to it. I definitely could say.
Hmm.
And
One question that I kind of have is like you know the latest Spider-Man movie Homecoming,
yeah,
and
yeah.
like the bad guy basically he became from the cleanup crew after all these like super
Yeah, yeah,
people
yeah.
battles and stuff like that. I'm kind of curious, like in mech anime, is there like a cleanup crew? Is like in the space ones probably not. There's just debris floating all over the place. But
Well,
like,
yeah. I think anyone who's not actively involved in the actual fighting of the mechs or the building of the mechs basically then handles the actual cleanup of if someone tries to destroy their kingdom or attacks the castle or whatnot, and there's debris and rubble. I would think, but
yeah.
maybe.
So it's like instead of them like moving that stuff wherever they move it, they're just like ship it off to him. I don't know. That was just
Oh
kind
yeah,
of
basically,
yeah. That
basically.
was just kind of
That
weird to
was
think about that.
that was the other thing too, is he ended up creating smaller versions of these robots, of like to where it was like best I could say is like almost like aliens, the little mech, the mobile mech where a person could sit into it, and it was almost
Oh
like an extension.
yeah.
So yeah, he basically created those as a way to help with if there was any damage that needed to be taken care of in like buildings or whatever, to help in construction and to help in construction of the mechs. He creates that. He created that. It was just like they're like, okay, yeah, and they even used those little mechs in a covert operation when they were trying to get inside of a kingdom. They used them as a way of because it gave them enhanced strength, enhanced speed.
Uh-huh.
So he kind of decked them out in further armor, and then just gave them as like a combat ability essentially.
That's
So it's like
crazy.
this is kids. It's the things he comes up with. It's just like he sees an issue, he sees a problem, and he's just like, oh, I can make it better. I can do this. I can do that. I can do that. And they're just like, okay, calm down, calm down, calm down. We get it. Trust me. Just stop for like 2 seconds. But I mean, again, the fantasy aspects are great. The mech combat, I enjoy a lot. I think they did really well with that. And seeing a character like this who's just that passionate about what he does and what he wants to do, you because of how passionate he is about that, you almost feel that way. It's like it transfers over to you essentially.
Yeah.
And you're just like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. Oh, this is gonna be awesome, and you feel that way too, because that's the way he feels, and he
Yeah.
expresses that, and you feel that the same way. So
Cool.
yes, as far as animes this season, I probably wait. Let me look at the other ones I watched. Yes, I want to say I would put this one as like my number 2. This would have been like right behind My Hero Academia.
Okay.
So if you're looking for a good season or series to watch, I definitely would say the only bad thing, and the reason why I would say it goes below My Hero Academia, is because the pacing of it is a little quick at certain points. It's almost like they had to kind of rush through certain things to get where they wanted to be. And I would have been more interested to see where it would have gone in those areas that they would have actually taken a little more time to explain and do more with. Beyond that, it's an
Okay, and then this one, they kind of came to a stopping point. There's not like a bunch of unanswered questions.
they finished up what they were doing, but obviously there's still more
Okay.
things going on. So this is one where I put it there in the same sense as what did we just talk about?
Smartphone.
Smartphone.
Yeah.
It's the same sense as smartphone. It's like there's still more stuff going on, and they could easily go further with this. It's just a matter of whether they choose to or not.
Okay.
But yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, I was interested in that one, so one day I'll get back to it. A lot of stuff that you said sounds cool, so
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely want to check that out.
And it's funny too, because the last episode I watched of it, they actually made comment to the fact that he's actually someone actually has the ability to see the future. Maybe not like exact, but at least certain details and what.
They wouldn't wake up, so I tried to stick something up their butt and it didn't work. And I'm like, why? Why do y'all keep doing this?